Ladies and gentlemen, silence is a word that can be unsettling, uncomfortable, and even challenging. Many of us grew up believing that speaking up was synonymous with strength, and that silence was a form of weakness or submission. But today, I want to offer a different perspective, one that turns this belief on its head and invites us to think of silence not as the absence of voice, but as a source of profound and transformative power. To begin, let's address what silence is not. Silence is not passivity. It is not avoidance. It does not mean we do not have a voice or are not able to speak when needed. Instead, silence is a deliberate choice, a conscious decision to step back, observe, and reflect before responding or acting. Choosing silence takes courage. It takes a deep kind of courage to contain our immediate reactions, our impulsive thoughts, and the burning desire to be heard. When we choose silence, we are telling ourselves and the world that we trust the process of understanding, rather than the rush to be understood. It is the practice of creating space, of generating an environment for deeper reflections, and allowing those reflections to guide our next step. In a world that constantly demands us to prove our worth, justify our existence, and rise above the noise, choosing silence is an act of rebellion. It is a way of taking back our power, recognizing that our worth is not tied to how loudly or how many times we speak, but to the depth and authenticity of what we feel. Let's talk about the relationship between silence and self-knowledge. Silence is like a mirror. When we allow ourselves to be silent, we confront our own thoughts, emotions, and beliefs. It is an opportunity to meet ourselves where we are, without judgment, without expectations, and without the need to mask our real feelings. The truth is that we often avoid silence because it forces us to confront our own vulnerabilities. It demands us to sit with our discomfort, our fears, and our insecurities. But it is precisely in those moments of silent introspection that we discover who we really are. Silence allows us to tune into our inner world and understand the motivations, desires, and wounds that guide our behavior. The power of silence lies in its ability to create space for clarity. When we are constantly bombarded by noise, both external and internal, we lose sight of our own needs and desires. We begin to live by the expectations, opinions, and judgments of others. Silence, on the other hand, acts as a reset button, giving us the opportunity to realign with our authentic self and listen to the gentle whispers of our intuition. We live in a culture that glorifies busyness. We are taught that productivity is the ultimate measure of success, and that slowing down is synonymous with falling behind. That is why silence can feel so threatening. It challenges everything we have been conditioned to believe. When we are silent, we are not producing, we are not contributing, we are not taking action. And that can be terrifying because it questions the very core of our self-worth. But here is the paradox. In silence, we find the freedom to let go of our need to be productive, to always be on the move, to always be achieving. In silence, we reclaim our humanity. Silence strips away the masks we wear and exposes our true selves. It reveals the raw, unpolished version of who we are, the parts we would rather hide, the vulnerabilities we are afraid to show, the self-doubts we have carried for years. But only when we allow ourselves to sit in that discomfort can we begin to heal, to grow, and to become our fullest selves. Silence is not just about the absence of words, but the presence of deep, attentive listening. Listening is one of the most profound forms of silence because it requires us to quiet our minds, to put aside our own agendas, and to truly be present in another person's experience. It is about creating space for someone else to be seen and heard, without interruption, without judgment, and without the need to fix or change anything. When we listen in silence, we practice. We practice empathy. We enter another person's world and allow ourselves to be affected by their story. This kind of listening is rare because it requires us to let go of our desire to be right, to have all the answers, and to control the narrative. It requires us to be humble and open, to admit that we don't have all the answers, and to recognize that each person we encounter has something valuable to teach us. To listen in silence is to honor the humanity of the other, to recognize that their experience is valid, even if it's different from our own. That is, I'm here, I'm present, and I'm willing to listen, even if I don't fully understand. Understanding this kind of listening builds trust, deepens connection, and allows genuine understanding to flourish. We live in a world that values speed, efficiency, and instant gratification. We are constantly bombarded with information, news, opinions, and noise. The idea of slowing down, of being still, can seem counterproductive and even impossible. But it is precisely because of this chaos that stillness is essential. Stillness is not the same as doing nothing. It is a conscious choice to pause, to breathe, and to create space for what truly matters. It is finding moments of calm amidst the noise, and allowing ourselves to be fully present in those moments. Stillness reconnects us with our own thoughts, feelings, and sensations, without distractions. Stillness allows us to cultivate mindfulness, the practice of being fully aware of our present experience without judgment. When we practice mindfulness, we learn to observe our thoughts and emotions without getting caught up in them, developing the ability to respond to life's challenges with greater clarity, wisdom, and compassion, rather than reacting impulsively from fear or anger. Silence teaches us the art of responding rather than reacting. When we react, we are carried away by our impulses, emotions, and conditioning. Reactions are often automatic, unconscious, and rooted in fear or defensiveness. They are the impulsive responses we later regret, the words we wish we could take back, the actions that do not align with our values. Responding, on the other hand, demands a pause. It requires us to sit quietly, step back, and reflect before we speak or act. Responding is a choice. It is being intentional with our words and actions, making decisions grounded in our core values rather than our immediate emotional state. In silence, we learn to create space between stimulus and response. In that space lies our power. It is in that interval of silence that we can choose how to respond to the challenges, conflicts, and difficulties that life throws at us. We can choose to respond with patience, with kindness, with courage, and with integrity. There is a mistaken belief that silence is a sign of weakness or a lack of confidence. But the truth is that silence requires enormous inner strength. It takes strength to hold back our opinions, to not defend ourselves, and to resist the urge to fill silence with empty words. It takes strength to allow our emotions to surface without pushing them away or numbing them with distractions. Silence is a practice of surrender. It is letting go of our need to control the outcome, to have all the answers, and to always be right. In silence, we learn to trust the process, to have faith that answers will come in due time, and to be at peace with the uncertainty of not knowing. When we cultivate silence, we build resilience. We develop the ability to stay centered in the face of adversity, to remain calm in the midst of chaos, and to find our center when everything around us seems to be falling apart. Silence teaches us to draw on our inner resources, to trust our own wisdom, and to find strength in our own presence. Silence is the cradle of creativity. It is in the moments of stillness, in the pauses between the noise, that our mind is free to wander, to dream, and to imagine new possibilities. Creativity does not thrive in a state of constant busyness or distraction. It needs space to breathe, to expand and grow. When we allow ourselves silence, we give ourselves permission to be curious, to explore our ideas without judgment, and to play with possibilities we might not have otherwise considered. Silence is a form of nourishment for the creative soul. It is where our best ideas are born, where our deepest revelations emerge, and where our most authentic expressions come to life. Creativity is not limited to art or innovation. It is the way we choose to live our lives, the way we find new ways of being, relating, and creating meaning in the world. Silence invites us to be creative in our decisions, to find solutions unique to us, and to live in harmony with our values and desires. In a world that constantly demands our attention, silence is a radical act of self-care. It is creating boundaries, saying no to noise, and giving ourselves permission to rest, recharge, and reconnect with what really matters. Practicing silence is prioritizing our well-being over our productivity, recognizing that our worth is not determined by how much we do, but by who we are. Silence allows us to slow down, listen to our body, and honor our own needs without guilt or shame. It is giving ourselves the space to breathe, rest, and just be. Self-care is not selfishness, it is essential. When we take care of ourselves, we show up. Silence allows us to be more present to the people and causes that are important to us. It is a way to fill our own cup so that we have something to offer to others. It is nourishing our soul to be a source of light and strength for those around us. Gratitude is one of the most transformative practices we can cultivate, and silence plays a key role in building a grateful heart. When we are silent, we have the opportunity to notice those small moments of beauty, joy, and wonder that often go unnoticed in the rush of everyday life. Silence allows us to be present with the gifts around us, the warmth of the sun on our skin, the laughter of a loved one, the taste of a delicious meal. Gratitude is about paying attention to the present moment, and silence helps us do just that. It shifts our focus from what we lack to what we already have, from what is not there to what is here. In silence, we find satisfaction in the simple things and recognize that happiness is not something we chase, but something we cultivate from within. When we practice gratitude in silence, we open our hearts to the abundance that already exists in our lives. We realize that we don't need more, we don't need to be more, and we don't have to prove anything to anyone. We are enough just the way we are. And that realization is the foundation of genuine satisfaction. One of the hardest lessons to learn in life is the power of letting go. Letting go of expectations, control, and the need to be right. Silence teaches us to release what no longer serves us and to make room for what really matters. It's surrendering to the flow of life and trusting that things will unfold as they should. Letting go doesn't mean giving up or resigning ourselves to fate. It means accepting that there are things we can't change and focusing our energy on what we can. In silence, we learn to stop clinging to outcomes and find peace in the present moment. We learn to let go of the stories we tell ourselves about who we should be and embrace who we really are. The practice of letting go is not easy. It requires us to face our fears, confront our limiting beliefs, and challenge the patterns that have kept us stuck. But in silence, we find the strength to do so. We find the courage to let go of the past, to forgive ourselves and others, and to move forward with an open heart. Ultimately, silence is not just a practice, it is a way of being. It is living from a place of presence, authenticity, and inner peace. It is finding our center amidst the chaos, being true to our values, and honoring our truth. Silence is about being grounded in who we are, regardless of what the world around us says. By embracing silence as a way of being, we become more in tune with the rhythm of our own life. We learn to listen to the wisdom of our own body, to trust the guidance of our intuition, and to follow the path that is uniquely ours. We become more compassionate, patient, and loving with ourselves and others. Silence is not the absence of life. It is the presence of all that makes life meaningful. It is where we find our deepest truths, our greatest strengths, and our deepest connections. Silence is the space in which we return to ourselves, and in that return, we discover that we already have everything we need to create a life of purpose, joy, and fulfillment. Our path to fulfillment is not about becoming someone new, but about remembering who we already are. It is about stripping away the layers of conditioning, expectations, and fear that have covered our true selves. Silence is the invitation to return to that place of authenticity, to embrace our imperfections, and to live from a place of integrity. Fulfillment is not about being perfect, but about being real. It is showing up with all of our imperfection, our doubts, and contradictions, and still believing that we are worthy of love and belonging. Silence teaches us that we don't have to be anything other than ourselves, and that our greatest gift to the world is our true, unapologetic selves. As we embrace silence, we learn that the answers we seek are not outside, but within us. Our path to wholeness is to trust our inner wisdom, to let go of the need for approval, and to step into our own power. It is to become the authors of our story and create a life that reflects our deepest values and desires. Silence invites us to embrace the unknown, to sit with uncertainty, and to make peace with the fact that life is unpredictable. We don't have all the answers, and without expecting the other to change or acknowledge their mistake, we learn that forgiveness is not about others, but about freeing ourselves from the weight of resentment. Silence offers us the space needed to process our pain, to let go of bitterness, and to find peace with the past. It allows us to heal wounds and move forward without the emotional burdens that hold us back. We will never have all the answers, but in silence we learn to be at peace with that. We learn that the journey is more important than the destination, and that the lessons we gain along the way are what shape us into the people we are destined to be. The unknown can be a source of fear, but it can also be a source of wonder. It is the place where possibilities exist, where creativity flourishes, and where new opportunities arise. Silence teaches us to embrace the unknown with an open heart, to let go of our need for certainty, and to find beauty in the mystery of life. When we embrace the unknown, we become more adaptable, more resilient, and more willing to take risks. We learn to face life's challenges and uncertainties with curiosity and courage, rather than fear and resistance. We become more willing to let go of what no longer serves us and step into the new with confidence and enthusiasm. Patience is a virtue that is often underestimated in our fast-paced world. We want quick fixes, immediate results, and instant answers. But silence teaches us the importance of patience, of waiting, of trusting the process, and of allowing things to unfold at their own pace. Patience is not about sitting passively. It's about having the strength to persevere, even when the path is not clear. In silence, we learn to be patient with ourselves, to give ourselves grace when we fail, and to recognize that growth takes time. We learn to be patient with others, to honor their own paths, and to give them the space they need to find their way. Patience involves letting go of the need to rush, force, or control, and instead embracing the natural rhythm of life. By practicing patience in silence, we develop an inner calm that allows us to meet life's challenges with greater ease. We become more resilient in the face of setbacks, more adaptable in the face of change, and more compassionate toward ourselves and others. In a world that often prioritizes logic, intellect, and reason, silence allows us to tune into the wisdom of the heart. The heart is a deep source of intuition, empathy, and connection. It's the part of us that knows what's right, even when it defies logic or reason. Silence creates the space to listen to that inner voice, to trust our instincts, and to follow the guidance of our heart. Heart wisdom is not about making decisions based on emotions alone. It is about integrating our emotions with our intellect, our intuition with our reason, and our compassion with our strength. Silence allows us to cultivate this kind of wisdom by giving us space to reflect, listen, and discern what really matters. When we live from heart wisdom, we make decisions aligned with our deepest values and desires, prioritizing relationships over achievement, connection over competition, and love over fear. Silence teaches us that true wisdom is not about having all the answers, but about living according to our own truth. Relationships are one of the most important aspects of our lives, and silence plays a crucial role in building healthy and meaningful connections. In silence, we learn to be present in another person's experience, to listen without interrupting, and to hold their emotional space without judgment. We learn to communicate not only with words, but also with our presence, our attention, and our empathy. Silence in relationships is about creating a safe space for vulnerability, of allowing ourselves and others to be seen and heard without the need to fix, change, or control. In silence, too, we learn to set boundaries, to say no when necessary, to honor our own needs, and to prioritize our own well-being. Boundaries are not about excluding people, but about creating space for healthy, respectful connections. Silence teaches us that we do not have to explain, justify, or defend our boundaries. They are enough simply because they honor who we are. Forgiveness is one of the most challenging practices we can undertake, but also one of the most liberating. Silence plays a key role in the forgiveness process, allowing us to process our pain without judgment, let go of resentment, and make peace with the past. Avoiding rejection. We learn that living authentically is not about seeking external approval, but about honoring who we truly are. In silence, we find the courage to let go of others' expectations and choose the path that resonates with our truth. Forgiveness of ourselves is one of the most profound forms of freedom. We allow ourselves to let go of the weight of missed opportunities and the mistakes made, recognizing that as human beings we are imperfect and constantly growing. We release the need to control everything, and it is done our hosts. Instead, we choose to live from a place of love and not fear. Practicing silence is learning to let go of attachment to the past, to embrace the unknown, and to live in alignment with our deepest values. Silence is not an escape from life. It is the way to fully engage in life. In it allows us to be present in every aspect of our human experience, from beauty to pain, from certainty to uncertainty. The peace we seek does not come from the absence of noise, but from being in touch with our own truth. Through the practice of silence, we become more aware of the patterns of resistance that keep us stuck. We see how we try to control, manipulate, or hold on to situations out of fear. In the act of surrender, we do not find weakness, but strength. The strength to accept what is, even when it is uncomfortable. True freedom lies not in forcing things, but in allowing life to flow as it is meant to. Silence is also the space where vulnerability thrives. It helps us face our deepest fears and insecurities, reminding us that our vulnerability is a source of strength. Being vulnerable is not about putting ourselves out there without purpose, but about allowing ourselves to be real, to embrace our humanity, and to show up authentically. In silence, we learn to remove the masks we wear to protect ourselves, and we realize that we don't need to have it all figured out to deserve love and belonging. Living authentically takes courage, and silence is the foundation where that authenticity grows. By stripping away external expectations and judgments, we come face to face with our true desires, values, and passions. We learn that we don't have to conform to fit in, and in the process we discover a fuller, more authentic life. Silence invites us to surrender, accept what we cannot change, and live each moment with gratitude and compassion. It is an act of love for ourselves and others, and it reminds us that we are worthy of love simply by being who we are, and allowing ourselves to experience life in all its depth and subtlety. By being fully present, we learn to connect with our surroundings and ourselves in a genuine and compassionate way. Silence teaches us not to judge our emotions or thoughts, but to observe them with curiosity and openness. This mindfulness practice allows us to release the need for perfection and simply accept experience as it is. Authenticity is an act of courage and sometimes means being willing to be misunderstood or even criticized. Silence gives us the strength to accept this reality and continue forward, staying true to who we are without relying on external approval. Being authentic means living from a place of integrity and connection to our inner selves, remembering that we do not have to conform to be valued. Compassionate leadership is born from service, humility, and empathy. Through silence, we cultivate an attentive and sensitive presence, a willingness to listen deeply, and to create a safe space for others to express themselves freely. We learn that leading is not about having all the answers, but about asking the right questions, supporting others to shine with authenticity. Silence allows us to acknowledge our own imperfections, lead from the heart, and uplift others rather than control them. In this approach to leadership, we recognize that growth and learning are a shared journey. Creativity also finds its refuge in silence. It gives us the freedom to explore, imagine, and create without external pressures or fear of failure. In that silent space, we break away from expectations and the need for validation, enjoying the act of creating as an authentic, unrestricted process. We learn that creativity is not an end, but an adventure that allows us to express ourselves honestly, discover new perspectives, and find joy in the process. Finally, mindfulness is an art that silence helps us cultivate. Through silence, we become more aware of sensations, thoughts, and emotions in the present moment, without judging them. It gives us the opportunity to observe the smallest details, to appreciate simplicity, and to connect deeply with ourselves and our surroundings. Practicing mindfulness in silence invites us to embrace the here and now and live a richer, fuller, more conscious life, and to get caught up in the fear of the unknown. Silence offers us a safe space to explore our emotions, even those that may feel uncomfortable, and it invites us to be present with our fears without judging or shying away from them. Through this honest encounter, we discover that our fears can be guides that direct us toward areas of growth and self-exploration. Practicing silent decision-making allows us to let go of external pressures and focus on what really matters to us. We become more patient and wise in our choices, giving us the time and space to reflect and listen to our intuition. Instead of rushing to meet external expectations or impulsive decisions, silence helps us act with integrity and authenticity. We learn to trust our own voice and distinguish it from the outside noise, allowing us to make choices that are in harmony with our values and authentic self. Silence also cultivates the courage to take risks. It helps us connect with our inner strength and recognize that true courage is not the absence of fear, but the willingness to move forward despite it. In silence, we face our worries and recognize that fears are not absolute barriers, but rather doors to growth and the expansion of our potential. We learn to accept that the process is as valuable as the outcome, and that our personal worth does not depend on successes or failures, but on the willingness to try. Thus, in silence, we understand that life is not about controlling every moment, but about embracing experience in all its complexity. It is in that stillness that we develop clarity, resilience, and an inner peace that allows us to face life's challenges with grace and determination. By living from silence, we find a constant source of courage and purpose, and we understand that the true richness of life lies in the courage to be true to ourselves and in the willingness to grow beyond our fears.